So there were three kinds of covenants in the ancient Near Middle East. There was a royal covenant, and this would be between a king and one of his subjects. And this was the most unconditional of the covenants. The king would provide or promise protection, provision and identity, so long as the subject gave him loyalty for the rest of his or her life. Then there was a less conditional covenant. It was called a suzerain vassal, where it was a stronger king with a weaker king, or a stronger empire with a weaker empire. And that stronger king would grant protection, provision and identity so long as the weaker king was loyal to that stronger king, particularly where battles and alliances were fought. And then finally there was mutual covenants. This could be between brothers or two tribes, where they would promise to protect each other in the event of adversity or battle. In that context, if the weaker party, either an individual subject or a weaker king, violated the terms of the covenants, then they would call down curses from the gods to bring distress and disorder and destruction to the offender. And actually, if we look back, as I've said, to Adam and Eve and the invitation in the garden, there was a similar process that they all went through. So God simply has one boundary, one covenant requirement, if you like, and it is, do not eat of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. What will happen is they will die. And then there's another tree, the tree of life. So what he's really putting before them is a covenant choice. Live under his covering, live in loyalty to God, walk, work and wander in his ways, and then life will flood into every aspect of your being. But if you violate that, choose to sever yourself off from the life of God, come under the governing tyrannic principle of sin, choose that myth of independence, then death and destruction will enter into every aspect of your life. And we see that they do that, and they do trigger curses, which is the language and process of covenant. When God actually has this devastating phrase where he actually repents, he has a change of mindset. He's made humanity because of the destruction that is at work in the world, and he decides to cleanse the whole earth from its toxicity, saving the one man and his family that do still operate in the way of Eden, in the way of trust and intimacy and partnership with him. Noah, his wife, their 3 sons and their 3 wives, and the animals that they steward into the ark. When they come out, God says this, he uses this word, I'm making a covenant with you and every living being. He simply says, I will not do that again. And he fulfills the obligations of the covenant as the stronger covenant partner. We then move on to 2 covenants with Abraham and Abraham. Now the difference between their names and Sarai and Sarah is he breathes the breath of life, a breath of himself into them. And he makes covenants with them that he will give them a land and he will give them a people. So Abraham and Sarah incredibly see God fulfill his covenant to them, and they have a son, Isaac. The laughter of self-protection, God will never come through to me, God may not even be real, is transformed into the laughter of breakthrough. God is real and he fulfills his promises. Isaac marries Rebekah and they have Esau and Jacob, twins as we know, and Jacob through Leah and Rachel and their servants fathers 12 sons who become the 12 tribes of Israel. Through various circumstances, one of their sons, Joseph, ends up second in command in Egypt, and because of a famine back in Canaan, the whole nation go and join Joseph there, and they prosper under that Pharaoh. However, 400 years later, they have thrived and prospered so much in the land of Egypt that they are a threat to a new Pharaoh, and he is beginning to brutally oppress the Israelites. Apart from one boy who is rescued from a genocide as a child, he's brought up in Pharaoh's household, and he has this passion to see a deliverance of his people. He uses his own strength to actually kill an Egyptian, and as a result runs away in hiding, not to a landscape not dissimilar to this, where for 40 years he looks after sheep in the wilderness. However, he has an extraordinary encounter with a burning bush where Yahweh himself reveals again, I am the God of Abraham, Isaac and Jacob. I have heard the cries of your people, and I am sending you to go and deliver them out of slavery into freedom, into their promised land. And when he says that, Moses would have known through oral tradition that was the language of covenant, that was the language of a word being fulfilled, and he was the one chosen. The most extraordinary deliverance happens through Moses. Through 10 plagues, he confronts the 10 key Egyptian gods and exposes that they are subject to Yahweh, the living God. And like a woman going into labour births a new free nation in the desert in Sinai, having seen that mighty Red Sea crossing and all the Israelites going through and all their enemies defeated. It is at this spot, at the foot of Sinai, all the new free nation ready, that Moses comes and brings the most extraordinary covenant of all, the covenant of Sinai, from which we have received the 10 words and to which we will look into more detail in the next session.